So here's the thing. I used to be complete with money. I really used to live my life like that Ariana Grande song. You know, the whole I see it, I like it, I want it, just bought it kind of thing. And yeah, sure, I had a lot of nice things, but truthfully, really not much else to show for it. And for a long time, I didn't really want anything to change. I just continued living in this cycle of stressing about money, going out and spending more to relieve that stress, and then worrying about it all over again. So when I committed to changing my life and my spending habits back in 2019, I knew I had my work cut out for me. Because yes, I had a lot of really bad money habits, but I probably had an even worse money mindset. Way before I could even take the necessary steps to change my relationship with money and how I spent it, I had to change how I thought about it. Because a lot of my money mindset was the thing that was keeping me stuck. So in today's video, I want to share with you the 10 money mindsets that were keeping me broke. And it was when I finally started to challenge some of these money mindsets that I was able to start making progress on my debt and change my life. So as we go through this video, think about if some of these mindsets are holding you back as well, and see if you can challenge them. And obviously this is all coming from a place where I am fortunate enough to have the money to meet my basic living needs. I totally understand that you can't just save your way out of being poor, but I do think that changing some of these money mindsets is gonna make you feel a lot more empowered and abundant when it comes to your finances and give you the courage to make some changes that you want to. Let's get into it. Number 1 was having a scarcity mindset. Now, I know that all sounds really woo-woo and manifestation, scarcity versus abundance mindset, but I realize that it really does matter. A scarcity mindset is essentially feeling like you've never have enough. Or it can show up as feeling just really hopeless about your money and that you're just always gonna be in this cycle forever. But that mindset really kept me stuck, especially when I was in debt, because it just left me feeling like there was no way out, so why bother even trying? It just simply makes it really difficult to see any future beyond where you are right now, and I think it really keeps you stuck. So I really had to learn to bypass my scarcity mindset, and I'm still working on it now today. But at the time of tackling paying off my debt, I had to overcome that mindset and shift it to one of abundance. Maybe write down a few limiting beliefs that you have about money, like I'll always be broke, and see how you can flip that to a framing that's more positive and abundant, and just see how that feels. You're gonna start to feel so much more empowered, and I think over time it's gonna give you confidence and even that kick that you might need to get started. Number 2 was believing that I'm just a person who's bad with money. This mindset was not only keeping me broke, but it was keeping me stuck in that cycle, because anytime I did something that I perceived as bad with money, I would just flip it back to the belief and just kind of say, well, I'm bad with money. I guess that's just what I do. And so really having that identity and belief about myself was holding me back and keeping me broke, because it was almost like I could make an excuse for myself for acting the way I did. When really I don't think that's true. I do believe we have certain tendencies with money and certain habits, but that doesn't mean that you're stuck that way, especially if it's something that you feel that you want to change or that's impacting your life negatively. Because there's a ton of power in your beliefs about your identity. James Clear, the author of Atomic Habits, he says that the most practical way to change who you are is to change what you do, because what you do shapes your identity. So if you feel like you have the identity of being bad with money, flip that script and think about, what does a person who is good with money do? Well, they probably budget. They probably think about their purchases before they buy it. They probably pay themselves first and save. So if you're looking to change your relationship with money, change your identity around it and make that part of who you are. It's a little bit half-assed to say, oh, I'm trying to be better with money, versus saying I am good with money. One's a lot more powerful and a lot less passive, and the more you say it to yourself, the more you're going to act in accordance with that identity, and the more you'll become that person. Number 3 also has to do with identity, but it's the whole idea of I'm a shopaholic. This is something that I still need to change, because even though I feel like I have a much healthier relationship with my shopping and my money, I still often lean back into saying, oh, I'm a former shopaholic, or I am a shopaholic. And I feel like when I have that identity about myself, even though there was a ton that I learned from it, sometimes I feel like it holds me back a little bit. Same thing goes with having the identity of being a spender over a saver. If you want to change your mindset around money and how you act around it, I think it's really important to think about some of these identities and labels that we give ourselves that could potentially be holding us back. And I know that whenever I leaned back on my shopaholic or spender identity, I would almost use it as an excuse every time I failed or acted out of alignment with my goals. It's like I almost didn't believe that I could be anything other than a spender or a shopaholic, so I just kept myself stuck in that cycle. And it wasn't until I started flipping that script and acting more in alignment with how I wanted to behave with my money, so saving my money, paying myself first, slowing down on impulse purchases, only buying things that were a hell yes instead of a lukewarm maybe or even a full no. The more I believed that I could be a saver or that I was on the other side of being a shopaholic, the more positively I acted with my money. Number 4 was buy now, worry about it later. This kept me broke and stuck for years because it just essentially allowed me to indulge in my impulses and basically clean up the mess later, which for years only ever seemed to pile up. And yeah, this mindset allowed me to indulge in my impulses and potentially even buy a bunch of nice things. But I realized over time that buying it now, charging things to my credit card, all it ever really gets you is a whole lot of really expensive worry. And this brings me into the sponsor of today's video, Coho. Since we are moving into the new year, it's really all about coming up with new mindsets to improve our lives and building better habits. I had to do a lot of work to change my mindset and my habits around how I used my credit card. I'd pretty much treated it like it was free money and never really thought about how I was going to pay it off later. It's important to make sure that you're maintaining a good credit score and good credit habits because it can really impact what you want to do later on in life, like applying for an apartment, getting a mortgage. If you're Canadian, Coho has a lot of really great high interest savings accounts, cashback cards so you can get rewards as you spend, and they also have some credit building programs that you can check out if you need some help rebuilding yours. I can do a whole video on building better habits when it comes to credit cards because I still do use mine, and I think if you can use them responsibly, they're really important tools in your financial life. But if you're Canadian and you want to check them out, you can use my code Christina20 where you'll get $20 if you sign up. I'll leave it all linked in the description below. Thanks, Coho. The oops, I did it again mindset. I stan Queen Britney, but anytime I ever impulse bought or did something that felt really out of alignment with my money goals, I would often lean back on that oops, teehee, my bad kind of mindset and just sort of dismiss it. I really never took it as an opportunity to learn from my mistake and see what I could do differently next time. So it's a little bit of that YOLO mindset coupled with just not taking myself seriously that really just kept me in this cycle of denial of what I was doing. Number 6 is keeping up with the Joneses. Especially now with things like Instagram and TikTok, where people are kind of putting their lives on display, putting their splurges, their vacations, their fancy brunches and lunches, all on display for you to see. After a while, it can really make you feel like you're behind in life or make you wonder why you can't afford that and they can. So it really creates this pressure to sort of keep up. And I can tell you I did that constantly, especially in my 20s. I thought as soon as I started working in my career and making real money, more money than I've ever seen in my life, I better start living a lifestyle that matches that salary. I should be able to afford it. When a lot of times looking back and thinking hard about it, I don't even know if half of what I spent money on I truly wanted for myself in the first place. This is where a lot of chasing your fantasy self can come in, and consider, is that fantasy self a result of peer pressure? So really it's about staying in your own lane and thinking hard about what it is you value. What is it that you love to spend money on? What is it that brings you joy, happiness? And what can you spend money on that feels guilt-free? A lot of us don't have enough money to do it all, so instead of trying to chase every single trend and what everybody else is doing, think about what it is that you care about, that's authentic to you, and use your money in that place instead. It's gonna feel a lot better and a lot more aligned, where you can start to drown out the noise and that pressure of trying to keep up with what everybody else is doing. The I'm too scared mindset. If you're in debt and you want to make moves to get out of it, or simply just want to build better, more abundant money habits, you need to get over this fear. And believe me, I used to love to keep my head in the sand about things. I never looked at my credit card bills. I especially avoided looking at my student loan balance. And I would often give into this feeling of overwhelm, throw my hands up in the air, and end up not doing anything about it at all. This is a terrible mindset to have because the more you know about your money, the more empowered you're going to feel, the more power you actually have over it. You know the saying, knowledge is power, and this is especially true when it comes to your money. So take a look at your bank statements, do a spending analysis. This was one of the first steps I took when it came to getting out of debt. I took a look back at my spending for the past 3 to 6 months and just started to get familiar with my money. I found out how much my rent costs, how much my bills were, how much money I spent on gas and food each month, how much my minimum payments were for my student loans, and I figured out how much money I spent on fun. And yeah, it did kind of suck. I was embarrassed and upset with myself, but at the same time, it also really fueled me because then I could really see where I could free up some money to start paying down on my debt. And I used that knowledge to start making changes to move myself forward. Honestly, what's even scarier is continuing to avoid it. Number 8 is the daddy's money mindset. I see this all the time on things like TikTok, where you see someone sort of sharing their life, and a lot of people will just say, oh, daddy's money. Must be daddy's money, she's a rich girl. And yeah, sure, that may be true, but we really don't know, do we? We don't know if they come from generational wealth. We don't know if they are in crippling credit card debt. Instead of worrying about how they're funding their lifestyle, worry about your own. Stay in your own lane, keep the blinders on, and focus on yourself. Number 9 was a mindset that I really had to get over, and it was the whole idea of that when I spend money, they're winning and I'm losing. I had this mindset for a really long time. In fact, I even said it in one of my videos a few years ago, and I've really changed my mindset since then. I had to start understanding that money is essentially a tool. It's a tool to curate the life that you want to live, where you can spend it to buy things that you value. And that could be material things, but it can also be experiences and even time. And really just having that association about money that anytime you spend it, I'm losing and they're winning, it puts you in a more submissive position, and I think really takes away your power. Because whatever that thing is I've chosen to buy, it means it's bringing value to me. I'm buying a service, I'm buying time, I'm buying an experience, I'm buying something that I want. And if I feel like I'm losing anytime I spend that money, then that experience or whatever it is I'm buying is just gonna feel like shit. And that's not the way I wanna see how I spend money. And finally, bad money mindset number 10 was the comparison trap fallacy. This is different than keeping up with the Joneses. It's kind of the opposite, where I would compare my financial situation to other people, and I would kind of go, well, at least I'm not as bad as them. I'm doing a little bit better than they are. And this to me is different than being grateful and feeling very fortunate for the situation that you're in, because there are a lot of people who are struggling and doing worse than I am or than we are. That's not really what I'm getting at here. I'd watch someone else who was getting out of debt and they would be $200,000 in debt instead of in $120,000. And I would just be like, okay, well, I'm not as bad as them. I guess that's cool. Because if I'm being honest, thinking that way for a long time basically affirmed my behavior so that I could just continue to do what I was doing without any change. Because I think we inherently compare ourselves to others, and I think we like to bias ourselves in feeling like we're doing better than maybe we already are. And that's because change is difficult and we're conditioned to stay comfortable and stay in the familiar. And this was just one of the many ways that I really tried to do that. So those are some of the more toxic and bad money mindsets that were keeping me broke for many years. And it wasn't until I started challenging some of these mindsets and some of these assumptions I had about myself and my own identity that I was able to start making some meaningful change in my life. Some of these mindsets I still do struggle with, and they do take time to overcome and to change. But I think if you're feeling stuck, a good place to start is thinking about your mindsets and your assumptions that you have about money. And I think a good exercise to try would be writing them down and then seeing if you can write the opposite. Repeat that to yourself, and over time, I think you'll really start to believe it. So let's do it right now. Let me know in the comments below a mindset that was holding you back, and then write the exact opposite. Let's flip the scripts together. Thank you again to Coho for sponsoring a part of today's video. I hope you check them out. And if you got some value from this video, I would love it if you give it a thumbs up for the YouTube algorithm. And please subscribe. Stick around. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you next Sunday. Bye.